Okay, so here is our new construction today, and it's for construction of a translation. And so we're using the definition of translation that we talked about the other day on Friday, I believe. And it is that a translation is a transformation along a vector such that two things happen. The segment joining a point and its image has the same length as the vector and is parallel to the vector. So what that tells me is that A prime is going to be this distance away from A. Okay, so of course we're going to have to know what that distance of the vector is. And it's also got to be parallel to it. So we know A prime's got to be on a line that's parallel to that vector. So this tells me the construction we're going to do is the parallel construction. Now, it's also going to be handy to have a longer line to work with. But remember that A prime has to be the same distance as the length of the vector from A. And so I would suggest putting a point here for your initial point and a point here for your terminal point so you can keep up with the distance of that vector when we get to that point. But you can use a straight edge to go ahead and lengthen that vector. And you can use a solid line with your pencil, but with my pen, I'll do it with a broken line just so you can tell the difference between the extension and the actual vector itself. So that's just me extending the vector. Okay, it's not changing its length. Its length is still from the initial point to the terminal point. I was just making it longer to make it easier to work with. So the first step in a parallel construction, remember, is to create an angle that you can copy. And so to do that, I'm going to do from A. I'm going to connect A to my line and go through my line. So I'm going to start at A and draw a line that intersects the vector and keeps going. And so what I did is I created 4 angles here, and I'm going to copy one of them. I'm going to always copy an acute angle, so I'm going to copy that angle. I just put a 1 in. And I'm going to copy that angle down here at A. So the steps for the construction that we've done before, put the point of your compass on this vertex of angle 1. Choose a setting on your compass that will allow you to make an arc through your angle in 2 places on both sides. Remember, don't use the smallest setting because later we're going to go and measure the distance between these intersections, and if you use the smallest setting, you're not going to be able to measure that with your compass. So make sure you don't use the smallest setting. So you just want to be able to go through both sides of that angle, like so. Don't change your setting because whatever we do here, we have to do at A. So I'm going to use the same setting I did for this arc, but I'm going to put the point of my compass on A. When I use this setting, I only have one side of my angle A so far, and that's this line I drew. So I definitely have to go through it. So I'm going to start a little to the left of that line. And when I make my arc, I'm going to come down quite a ways with that arc. Remember, I'm looking for an intersection over here that I can connect to A and make a line that's parallel to my vector. So if I only draw my arc to right here, that's not long enough. I've got to keep going down so I make sure I cover that region where my intersection needs to be. So while you're doing that, remember this setting from this vertex has to be the same setting from A. So these settings are exactly the same. Okay, once you have that, we're going to go back and we're going to measure the distance from here to here on the first arc we drew that intersected both sides of the angle. We're going to see how far those are supposed to be apart using our compass, not numbers. We're going to put the point of our compass on one of those points of intersection, and we're going to open up the compass so the hole is on top of the other point. So there's a good setting right there. 1 point here, 1 point here. I don't need to draw an arc here. I've had both of those points. So now I'm going to move this point, and this is where it's really important that you understand what you're doing. You're not moving the point of your compass here or here. You're trying to repeat this distance between the intersections of your arc. So you're going to this arc, and the only place it intersects our line is right here. That's where I'm putting the point of my compass, right here. Not here and not here, where that arc intersected my line. So I'm going to put the point of my compass right here, and I'm going to use that setting to draw an arc that intersects the one I already drew. So these arcs are the same measure, and when I do this setting here, I use it from that arc intersection to create that arc. Now I can use my straight edge of my compass or my ruler, and you're going to intersect or draw the line that intersects A and that arc intersection. And make sure you draw it pretty long. You need that line to be pretty long. Remember, we want A prime this far away from A. So your line has to be more than this distance right here from the end of your vector to the, from the initial to the terminal end. So that's the parallel construction. That just tells me that A prime has to be along this line somewhere. That's this part of the definition. Now we have to do this part of the definition. A prime from A has to be the same length as my vector. So now I'm going to go up here and I'm going to measure my vector. I'm going to put the point, the initial point at the center of my twirly part, the crosshairs there. And I'm going to open up my compass so it's on the terminal point of the vector. Oh, can't get that to, there we go. Okay, so initial point here, terminal point here. Measure that distance of the vector. Once you have that setting, now move the center of your compass to point A, and you can use that setting to place an arc on your parallel line so you know exactly where A prime is located. So this distance is the same as my vector length. So this arc tells me where to place A prime. This arc is where these intersect. That doesn't tell me where A prime is. That just allows me to draw my parallel line. So that's the construction you're doing. That's the parallel construction. You need to do it 3 times total because you have 3 vertices. So you need to do that 2 more times. I'm going to do it with you 1 more time, and I'm going to do it from vertex B. So since vertex B is over here, I'm going to use this extension of the vector over here to do my construction, just so my arcs aren't just all over themselves. So I'm going to use the side of my compass as my straight edge, draw a line from point B through the extension of my vector. I created 4 angles here. Again, I'm going to put a 1 there in the angle that I'm going to copy, that acute angle right there. So the first step of the construction in copying that angle is to put the point of my compass here where my line intersects the extension of my vector, and choose a setting that will go through the sides of the angle in 2 places. Remember, once you have that, then you can put your pencil in and do 1 motion and not go back and forth. Whatever setting we use here, we have to use down here at B. It's got to go through the side of the angle and keep coming down a ways so we can make that parallel line. So I'm going to not change my setting, move this down at B, go on the other side of the line, and draw 1 arc that comes down quite a ways there. Once you've drawn these 2 arcs using the same setting, 1 from this vertex and 1 from B, now we're going to measure the distance from here to here on that arc. So point of my compass on 1, open up the arc on the other, and use that setting. Be careful where you go. It's not at the vertex of that first angle. It's at this intersection. Mine's really, really close, but I want to make sure I get it on the right place. It's that lower point, the one the arc made with the line, that I'm going to put the point of my compass on. and then I'm going to draw that arc using that setting, crossing the one I already had. Now when I have that, I'm going to use my ruler as my straight edge. I'm going to draw a line from B that goes through my intersection of my arcs. And that's my line that's parallel to my vector. Now I haven't placed B prime, I just know it's somewhere on this green line. So to place where B prime is, I'm going to go back up here and measure the length of my vector. Put the center of my crosshairs, the point of my compass on 1, the initial point, and open up my compass so that the whole setting is on the terminal point. Once I have that setting, I go down to B, and I use that setting to see where B prime is located on that parallel line. So B prime would be at the intersection of the arc I just drew. B prime is the same distance from B as the length of my vector. A prime from A is the same distance as my vector. So now I would just need to do that whole construction one more time, so I can show you what that looks like when it's finished. So here's the two we did, the blue and the green. When I did the red, I drew my line over here so it wasn't overlapping the ones I already had. I just drew it over here in this empty space. So I would connect C and just keep going that way. So I can use kind of this empty space to do my construction. So once I drew that red line from C through my vector, I did this arc and this arc with the same setting. Then I measured from here to here and came to here and drew that arc. That allowed me to draw my parallel line. Then I went back and measured the vector and used that distance to do this arc to place C prime. Once you have A prime, B prime, C prime, don't forget, use your straight edge to connect those points. That makes your triangle. Don't freehand anything. Always use your straight edge. All right, hopefully you can do this again on your homework. Good luck.